It's 3:17 a.m., and Helen is awake again. Not because she wants to be, not because of a bad dream or a noise outside, but because her bladder has sounded its familiar alarm, demanding attention she's already given it twice tonight. She lies there for a moment, hoping, praying that maybe this time she can ignore it. Maybe if she just shifts positions, breathes deeply, thinks about something else. But no, the urgency builds like a tide she can't hold back. With a heavy sigh, Helen throws off the covers and makes her way to the bathroom in the dark, her feet finding the familiar path they've worn smooth with countless midnight journeys. As she sits there, she remembers when sleep used to be a refuge, not a battlefield. This is Helen's story, but it might as well be yours, because if you're watching this video, chances are you know exactly what those 3 a.m. wake-up calls feel like, the way they steal your sleep piece by precious piece, the way they turn your bedroom into a relay race between your bed and the bathroom. Maybe it's 3 times a night for you. Maybe it's 6. Maybe you've lost count because somewhere along the way, you've forgotten what it feels like to sleep through the night. You've forgotten what it's like to wake up refreshed instead of exhausted, to plan an evening out without mapping every restroom along the way. The cruel irony is that the less you sleep, the more your bladder seems to act up. It's like your body is trapped in a cycle where poor sleep makes your bladder more sensitive, and your sensitive bladder destroys your sleep. You're caught in a web that tightens every night. I've seen this pattern in my practice for decades. Patients who whisper about their bathroom habits like they're confessing a secret shame. Men and women who've given up on travel, on movies, on the simple pleasure of an uninterrupted conversation because their bladder has become the loudest voice in their life. But here's what I want you to know, and why I'm sharing this with you tonight. This isn't just about getting older. This isn't something you have to accept as your new normal. Your sleep is being hijacked, yes, but tonight, we're going to begin taking it back. Because Helen's story doesn't end at 3:17 a.m. 3 months later, Helen sleeps through the night, every night. And if you'll stay with me for the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly how she did it, and how you can too. But first, I need you to help me understand where you're starting from. In the comments below, tell me your number. How many times does your bladder wake you up on a typical night? Don't be embarrassed. We're all friends here, and your honesty helps me know how to help you better. Type your number in the comments. 1 time? 3 times? More. Your midnight wake-up count is about to become a thing of the past, and I want to celebrate with you when it does. Now let me tell you something that might surprise you about what's really happening inside your body during those frustrating nights.
You know what's interesting? For decades, I've been hearing the same story from patients. They tell me about their bladder troubles, and then they inevitably say, "Doc, I guess this is just what happens when you get older." But here's what I've discovered after treating thousands of people with nighttime urgency issues. Your bladder problem isn't really a bladder problem. Not entirely. What's happening to you at 3 a.m. is actually the result of a perfect storm involving 3 systems in your body that most medical professionals treat as completely separate. But they're not separate at all. They're intimately connected, like 3 musicians in an orchestra that's been playing out of tune for so long you've forgotten what harmony sounds like. Let me explain this connection that changes everything. First, there's your bladder itself. Not just the organ, but the intricate network of muscles and nerves that control it. Think of your bladder like a smoke detector in your home. A properly functioning smoke detector only goes off when there's actual danger, real smoke, real fire. But what happens when that detector becomes hypersensitive? It starts screaming at the slightest wisp of steam from your shower, the smallest bit of dust in the air. That's exactly what's happening in your body. Your bladder's smoke detector, those nerve endings that signal when it's time to empty, has become so hypersensitive that it's sounding false alarms. Your bladder might only be a quarter full, but your nervous system is acting like it's a 5-alarm emergency. But why has your internal smoke detector gone haywire? This brings us to the second player in this trio: inflammation. Here's what's fascinating, and what took me years of practice to fully understand. Chronic, low-grade inflammation throughout your body doesn't just affect your joints or your heart. It infiltrates the delicate tissues around your bladder, making those nerve endings jumpy and reactive. It's like having a sunburn on the inside. Everything feels more intense, more urgent than it actually is. And where does this inflammation come from? Stress, poor sleep, certain foods, even the medications some of you are taking for other conditions. It's a slow burn that's been building for years, and your bladder is where it's finally making itself known. Now, here's the third piece of this puzzle, and it's the one that completes the vicious cycle: your stress response system. Every time you wake up at night, every time you worry about making it to the bathroom in time, every time you feel embarrassed about your condition, your body releases stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones were designed to help you run from danger, not to circulate through your system night after night. But here's the cruel irony. These same stress hormones make your bladder even more sensitive. They increase inflammation, they disrupt your sleep patterns, and they turn your nervous system into a hair-trigger mechanism that overreacts to the slightest sensation. So you're trapped in a cycle. Poor sleep increases stress hormones increase inflammation, inflammation makes your bladder hypersensitive. A hypersensitive bladder disrupts your sleep. And round it goes, night after endless night. Most treatments only address one piece of this puzzle. They give you medications that might numb the bladder signals, but they don't address the inflammation. They suggest behavioral changes that might help with timing, but they don't calm your nervous system. They treat the smoke, but they never fix the oversensitive detector. But what if I told you there was a way to address all three systems at once? What if there was something so simple, so natural, that it could calm your nervous system, reduce inflammation, and reset your bladder's sensitivity, all while you sleep? I know it sounds too good to be true. I was skeptical myself when I first learned about this approach, but then I started seeing patients like Helen transform their nights, and I realized we'd been looking at this problem all wrong. If you've tried everything else, the medications, the bathroom schedules, the fluid restrictions that leave you feeling parched and defeated, then I want you to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because what I'm about to share with you is for people who are ready to try something different, something that works with your body's natural healing ability instead of against it. In just a moment, I'm going to tell you about Margaret's incredible transformation. She went from waking up 6 times a night to sleeping peacefully through until morning. And she did it with something so simple, you probably have the ingredients in your kitchen right now. But Margaret's story isn't just about better sleep. It's about getting her life back.
Let me tell you about Margaret. She was 68 when she first walked into my office, and I could see the exhaustion written in every line of her face. She'd been averaging 6 bathroom trips every single night for over 2 years. "Doctor," she said, settling into the chair across from my desk, "I feel like I'm losing my mind. My daughter wants me to come visit her grandchildren in California, but how can I survive a 5-hour flight when I can't even make it through the night without getting up 6 times?" Margaret had tried everything her previous doctors suggested. She'd taken prescription medications that left her feeling foggy and dizzy during the day. She'd restricted her fluid intake so severely that she was constantly thirsty and dealing with kidney stones. She even tried those expensive bladder training programs that felt more like military drills than healing. The worst part, Margaret confided, isn't even the getting up. It's the lying there afterward, wide awake, watching the clock, and knowing I'll be up again in an hour or two. I haven't had a real night's sleep in so long I've forgotten what it feels like to wake up refreshed. What struck me most about Margaret wasn't just her frustration, it was her resignation. She'd reached that point where she'd stopped believing things could actually get better. She was there for a routine checkup, not because she thought I could help with her bladder issues. She'd given up hope that anyone could. But as I listened to her story, I realized Margaret was the perfect candidate for something I'd been researching, a completely different approach that addressed the root cause, rather than just managing symptoms. I explained to her what I just shared with you, how her bladder sensitivity was connected to inflammation and stress hormones, creating this endless cycle. But Margaret, bless her heart, looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "Doctor, that's all very interesting," she said, "but what am I supposed to do about it? I've already tried everything." That's when I told her about the simple bedtime drink that could potentially reset her entire system. I won't lie, Margaret was skeptical. After years of disappointment, who wouldn't be? "You're telling me," she said slowly, "that something I can make in my kitchen might work better than all these medications and programs I've spent thousands of dollars on?" I understood her doubt. It sounded almost too simple to be true. But I explained the science behind it, how this particular combination of natural compounds could simultaneously calm her nervous system, reduce the inflammation irritating her bladder tissues, and help reset her sleep cycle. Margaret agreed to try it, but I could tell she didn't really believe it would work. She was just humoring the doctor who had been kind enough to listen to her whole story. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was Margaret, and I could hear something different in her voice immediately. "Doctor, I don't want to get my hopes up, but last night I only got up 3 times. 3 times instead of 6. Could that be from what you told me to try?" I encouraged her to continue for 2 weeks and keep track of her progress. What happened next still gives me chills when I think about it. By the end of the first week, Margaret was down to 2 wake-ups per night. By day 10, she had her first full night of sleep in over 2 years. And by the end of 2 weeks, she was consistently waking up just once, if at all. But the real transformation wasn't just about the numbers. When Margaret came back to see me a month later, she looked like a different person. Her eyes were bright, her step was lighter, and she practically bounced into my office. "Doctor, I booked that flight to California," she announced with a grin that could have lit up the room. "But more than that, I feel like myself again. I have energy during the day, I'm not afraid to go places, I'm not constantly worried about where the nearest bathroom is." She paused, and her voice got a little emotional. She said, "You gave me my life back. I didn't realize how much I'd been missing until I got it back." Margaret's story isn't unique. I've seen the same transformation happen again and again once people understand what's really going on and address all 3 systems at once: the bladder sensitivity, the inflammation, and the stress response. The beautiful thing about Margaret's solution is its simplicity. No complicated schedules, no expensive medications with side effects, no restrictions that make you feel deprived, just one simple drink taken at the right time with the right ingredients in the right way. If you see yourself in Margaret's story, if you've tried everything else and you're ready to give up hope, I want you to type Margaret in the comments below, because what worked for her can work for you too. And here's what I love most about this approach. It doesn't just mask the symptoms like medications do. It actually helps your body heal and reset itself. Margaret isn't dependent on anything except her body's own natural ability to find balance again. Now, I know you're probably wondering exactly what Margaret drank and how she prepared it.
The science behind why this simple combination is so powerful might surprise you.
I can practically feel your curiosity through the screen right now. What exactly did Margaret drink? How can something so simple address all three systems we talked about? The hypersensitive bladder, the inflammation, and the stress response. The answer lies in understanding how certain natural compounds work together in ways that modern medicine is only beginning to appreciate. What Margaret discovered, and what I've been prescribing to my patients for the past several years, is a carefully crafted combination of tart cherry juice and magnesium glycinate, taken exactly 1 hour before bedtime. Now, before you think, that's it, let me explain why this simple combination is actually a masterpiece of natural healing. Let's start with tart cherry juice. Most people think of cherries as just a sweet treat, but tart cherries are completely different. They're one of nature's richest sources of natural melatonin. Not the synthetic version you find in pills, but the exact same compound your brain produces to regulate sleep. But here's what makes tart cherry juice so special for bladder issues. It contains powerful anti-inflammatory compounds called anthocyanins. Think of these as tiny peacekeepers that travel through your bloodstream, calming inflammation wherever they find it, including in the delicate tissues around your bladder. Remember that oversensitive smoke detector we talked about? The anthocyanins in tart cherry juice are like a gentle technician who comes in and recalibrates the detector, turning down the sensitivity so it only responds to real signals, not false alarms. Studies have shown that people who drink tart cherry juice regularly have significantly lower levels of inflammatory markers in their blood. But what researchers are just beginning to understand is how this reduction in inflammation specifically affects bladder function. When the tissues around your bladder are inflamed, every nerve ending becomes hyperactive. It's like having a sunburn on the inside. Everything feels more intense than it should. The anti-inflammatory compounds in tart cherry juice help heal this internal irritation, allowing your bladder's nerve signals to return to normal sensitivity. Now, let's talk about the magnesium glycinate. If tart cherry juice is the peacekeeper, magnesium is like a master electrician for your nervous system. Your bladder doesn't operate independently. It's controlled by a complex network of nerves that sends signals back and forth between your bladder and your brain. When you're chronically stressed or sleep-deprived, these nerve pathways become overcharged, like electrical wires with too much current running through them. Magnesium acts as a natural voltage regulator. It helps calm these overexcited nerve pathways, essentially turning down the volume on your bladder's alarm system. But not just any magnesium will do. This is why the specific form matters. Magnesium glycinate is the most easily absorbed form, and it crosses into your nervous system more effectively than other types. The glycinate part is actually an amino acid that has its own calming properties, so you're getting a double benefit. But here's where it gets really interesting. Magnesium also regulates your body's production of stress hormones like cortisol. Remember how we talked about cortisol creating that vicious cycle? Well, magnesium helps break that cycle by signaling to your adrenal glands that it's time to slow down cortisol production and shift into repair mode. When you combine these two ingredients and take them an hour before bed, something beautiful happens. The tart cherry juice begins working on the inflammation and starts naturally boosting your melatonin levels. The magnesium glycinate calms your nervous system and helps regulate your stress response. Your bladder muscles begin to relax. Those hypersensitive nerve endings start to calm down. Your brain begins to produce the right balance of sleep hormones. And instead of that familiar cycle of stress, inflammation, and disrupted sleep, you enter a healing cycle where each system supports the others. It's like having three musicians who've been playing out of tune suddenly find their harmony again. The bladder stops sending false alarms, the inflammation subsides, and your stress response system finally gets the message that it's safe to rest.
What I love about this approach is that it works with your body's natural healing mechanisms instead of trying to override them. You're not numbing symptoms or forcing artificial changes. You're simply giving your body the specific nutrients it needs to restore balance. The timing is crucial too. Taking this combination exactly 1 hour before bed allows the compounds to reach peak effectiveness just as your body is naturally preparing for sleep. It's like setting the stage for a perfect night's rest. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but doctor, if I drink anything before bed, won't that just make me get up more? That's exactly what Margaret asked me, and it's a completely logical concern. Here's the fascinating part. When your bladder is hypersensitive due to inflammation and stress, it doesn't matter how much or how little you drink. It's going to wake you up anyway. But when you calm the inflammation and nervous system first, your bladder can actually handle normal fluid levels without overreacting. The small amount of liquid in this bedtime drink, we're talking about just 4 ounces, is easily processed by your kidneys before the calming effects take hold. Most of my patients find that they actually wake up less even though they're drinking something before bed. Are you starting to see how this could change everything for you? Can you imagine what it would feel like to address the root cause instead of just managing symptoms? In the comments, I want you to type your best guess about which ingredient surprised you more, the tart cherry juice or the magnesium glycinate. I love seeing which part of the science resonates most with people. Now, let me give you the exact recipe and timing that Margaret used to transform her nights.
All right, let's get practical. You've been patient through the science, and now it's time for the exact recipe that changed Margaret's life and can change yours too. Here's what you'll need, and I want you to write this down or save this video so you can reference it later. The evening bladder calm recipe. 4 ounces of pure tart cherry juice, and I emphasize pure because this matters enormously. You want 100% tart cherry juice with no added sugars, no artificial flavors, and definitely no high fructose corn syrup. The brand I recommend most often is available at most health food stores, and you can usually find it in the refrigerated section or sometimes in the natural foods aisle. To this, you'll add 200 milligrams of magnesium glycinate. This comes in capsule form, and here's what to look for. Make sure it specifically says glycinate or biglycinate on the label. Avoid magnesium oxide. It's cheaper, but it's poorly absorbed and can cause digestive upset. Now here's how Margaret prepared hers, and this ritual became almost as important as the ingredients themselves. Every evening at exactly 8:30 p.m., 1 hour before her desired bedtime of 9:30, Margaret would go to her kitchen and pour 4 ounces of the tart cherry juice into her favorite small glass. She'd open her magnesium capsule and stir the powder directly into the juice. Why break open the capsule instead of just swallowing it? The powder mixes with the cherry juice and begins absorbing immediately in your mouth and throat, giving you faster, more complete absorption than waiting for a capsule to dissolve in your stomach. Margaret would stir it gently for about 30 seconds until the powder completely dissolved. The taste? It's tart, as you'd expect, but most people find it quite pleasant, like a concentrated cherry flavor with a slightly earthy undertone from the magnesium. Then comes the important part. Margaret would drink the entire 4 ounces slowly, over about 5 minutes. Not gulped down, but sipped mindfully, almost like a bedtime meditation. This slower consumption helps with absorption and turns the whole process into a calming ritual that signals to your body it's time to begin winding down. After finishing her drink, Margaret would rinse the glass and then follow her normal bedtime routine. Brushing her teeth, changing into comfortable sleepwear, maybe reading for a minute or two. The key was consistency. Same time every night, same preparation method, same ritual. Now, let me address some common questions and customization tips because everybody's body is slightly different. If you're sensitive to cherry flavor or have blood sugar concerns, you can dilute the cherry juice with up to 2 ounces of pure water.
The effectiveness remains the same, but it reduces the intensity of flavor and the natural fruit sugars. For the timing, that 1-hour window before bed is ideal for most people, but if you're someone who processes liquids very quickly, you might need to adjust to 45 minutes before bed. If you're slower to process fluids, you might push it to 75 minutes before bed. Listen to your body and adjust accordingly. Some people ask about taking this with food. It's actually best on an empty stomach, at least 2 hours after your last meal. This ensures maximum absorption of both the anti-inflammatory compounds and the magnesium. What about sourcing these ingredients? For the tart cherry juice, health food stores are your best bet, but many regular grocery stores now carry pure tart cherry juice in their natural food section. Online is also a great option, just make sure you're reading labels carefully. For magnesium glycinate, I prefer the powder form if you can find it, because you don't have to break open capsules, but capsules work perfectly well too. Look for reputable supplement companies that third-party test their products for purity. Here's what to expect in those first few nights, because managing expectations is important. Night 1, you might not notice much difference. Your body is just beginning to respond. Night 2 or 3, many people report falling asleep more easily, even if they still wake up the same number of times. By the end of the first week, most people see a reduction in nighttime wake-ups. But remember Margaret's timeline, significant improvement by day 10 and her best results after 2 full weeks of consistency. The key word there is consistency. This isn't a one-time fix. It's about creating new, healthier patterns in your body. Think of it like physical therapy for your bladder and nervous system. You wouldn't expect one session to fix a muscle problem, and you shouldn't expect one night to reset years of inflammation and sensitivity. During that first week, keep a simple log. Write down what time you drink your mixture, what time you go to bed, how many times you wake up, and how you feel in the morning. This helps you track your progress and makes adjustments if needed. Some people worry about becoming dependent on this mixture. Here's the beautiful thing. You're not creating dependence, you're creating healing. After several months of consistent use, many of my patients find they can gradually reduce the frequency, maybe taking it 5 nights a week instead of 7, then eventually just a few nights a week as needed. Your body learns to maintain the improved patterns on its own as the inflammation resolves and your nervous system recalibrates. Now, before you head to the store or place an online order, I want you to make a commitment. In the comments below, type, "I'm trying this tonight," if you're ready to give your body the chance to heal that it's been waiting for. This isn't just about buying ingredients, it's about committing to consistency, to giving your body time to respond, and to believing that better nights are possible. But I also want to share something with you that most people don't know about natural solutions like this one, and why the medical establishment has been so slow to embrace approaches that could help millions of people.
You know, after 30 years of practicing medicine, I've learned that sometimes the most powerful treatments are also the most overlooked. And there's a reason for that, one that has nothing to do with effectiveness and everything to do with economics. Let me share something that might open your eyes about why solutions like Margaret's bedtime drink aren't standard care in most medical practices. The pharmaceutical industry invests billions of dollars developing and marketing bladder medications. These drugs often require ongoing prescriptions, regular monitoring, and management of side effects. A typical bladder medication might cost anywhere from $200 to $500 per month, and most people take them for years. Now, let's do some simple math. Margaret's tart cherry juice costs about $8 per bottle and lasts roughly 2 weeks. The magnesium glycinate costs about $15 per bottle and lasts about 2 months. We're talking about roughly $25 per month for a solution that addresses the root cause instead of just managing symptoms. But here's the thing that really concerns me. Pharmaceutical companies can't patent tart cherry juice or magnesium. They're natural substances that have been around for thousands of years. There's no way to create a monopoly on them, no way to charge premium prices, and no way to generate the massive profits that drive research funding and medical education. I'm not saying pharmaceutical companies are evil.
They serve an important purpose, and there are definitely times when medications are necessary and life-saving. But the system is structured in a way that favors treatments that can be patented and sold at high prices over simple natural solutions that work just as well or better. Think about it this way. If you were a company that had spent millions developing a bladder medication, would you want doctors recommending a $25 per month natural alternative? The financial incentive is to keep you on the prescription, managing your symptoms indefinitely, rather than addressing the underlying cause. This is why most doctors never learn about approaches like this in medical school. The curriculum is heavily influenced by pharmaceutical companies who fund medical education, sponsor conferences, and provide continuing education materials. Natural healing approaches that can't be patented simply don't get the same level of research funding or promotional support. But here's what's really interesting. When independent researchers do study natural compounds like those in tart cherry juice and magnesium, the results are often remarkably impressive. The problem is that these studies don't get the same media attention because there's no marketing budget behind them. I've seen patients spend thousands of dollars on bladder medications that leave them feeling drowsy, confused, or dealing with constipation and dry mouth. Meanwhile, they could have achieved better results with natural compounds that actually support their body's healing process instead of interfering with it. The difference in side effects alone is remarkable. Prescription bladder medications can cause cognitive impairment, especially in older adults. They can worsen constipation, cause dangerous interactions with other medications, and some have been linked to increased risks of dementia with long-term use. Compare that to Margaret's approach. The only side effects are better sleep, reduced inflammation throughout the body, and improved overall health. The tart cherry juice provides antioxidants that benefit your heart and brain. The magnesium supports bone health, muscle function, and mood regulation. You're not just treating your bladder, you're supporting your entire body's health and healing capacity. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not telling you to stop taking prescribed medications without talking to your doctor, but I am encouraging you to be an informed advocate for your own health. Ask questions, research alternatives, consider approaches that address root causes instead of just managing symptoms. The beautiful thing about natural healing is that it empowers you to take control of your health instead of being dependent on expensive treatments that may or may not work long term. Here's what really motivates me. I've watched too many patients suffer unnecessarily because they weren't aware of simple, effective alternatives. They thought their only options were either expensive medications with side effects or just learning to live with the problem. But you have a third option, one that's been hiding in plain sight. You can choose to support your body's natural healing ability with compounds that have been used safely for centuries, that cost a fraction of prescription alternatives, and that offer additional health benefits beyond just bladder control. In the comments, I want you to share your thoughts. Type natural solutions if you prefer approaches that work with your body instead of against it when possible. I'm curious to see how many of you have had experiences with treatments that felt like they were creating new problems while trying to solve old ones. The choice is yours, and that's exactly how it should be. You deserve to know all your options, not just the most profitable ones. Now, let me walk you through exactly what to expect during your first week of trying this natural approach, because knowledge is power, and the more you understand about your healing journey, the more successful you'll be.
Let's talk about what your transformation is going to look like, day by day, because understanding this journey will help you stay committed when your body is still adjusting to this new healing pattern. Day 1. Tonight, when you take your first sip of that tart cherry and magnesium mixture, your body is going to receive its first dose of anti-inflammatory compounds and calming nutrients it may not have had in proper amounts for years. Don't expect miracles on night 1. Your body is just beginning to remember what balance feels like. You might find yourself falling asleep a little easier than usual, or you might not notice any difference at all. Both responses are completely normal. What's happening internally is that inflammation markers are beginning to decrease, and your nervous system is starting to receive the signal that it's safe to relax. Day 2 and 3. This is where many people start to notice subtle changes. You might wake up feeling slightly more rested, even if you still got up during the night. Some people report that their sleep feels deeper, more restorative. Others notice that when they do wake up at night, they fall back asleep more quickly. Your bladder might still be waking you up the same number of times, but the urgency might feel less intense, less panic-inducing. Remember, you're rewiring patterns that have been established for months or years. This takes time. Day 4 and 5. Here's where things often get interesting. Many of my patients report their first night with one fewer wake-up during this period. Instead of 5 times, maybe it's 4. Instead of 3 times, maybe it's 2. But I want to prepare you for something. You might have a night during this period that feels like a step backward. Maybe you wake up more times than usual, or the urgency feels stronger. This is actually normal and often a sign that your body is adjusting. Think of it like waves on a beach. The overall tide is coming in, but individual waves move back and forth. Day 6 and 7. By the end of your first week, most people see measurable improvement. This might be fewer wake-ups, longer stretches of sleep between bathroom trips, or simply feeling more rested despite the interruptions. Here's what I want you to track during this week, and you can use a simple notebook or the Notes app on your phone. Write down what time you drink your mixture each night. Consistency matters more than you might think. Write down what time you actually get into bed. Note how many times you wake up to use the bathroom. Rate your morning energy level on a scale of 1 to 10. Don't obsess over these numbers, but do pay attention to the patterns. You're looking for trends, not perfection. Now, let me address some common concerns that come up during this first week. What if I don't like the taste? The tart cherry juice can be quite tangy, especially if you're not used to unsweetened juices. If the flavor is too intense, remember you can dilute it with up to 2 ounces of water. Some people add a small pinch of stevia if they need a touch of sweetness, but try to avoid this if possible. You want your taste buds to adjust to less sweet flavors overall. What if I forget to take it at the right time? Life happens, and you might occasionally miss your ideal timing. If you remember within 30 minutes of your usual time, go ahead and take it. If it's been longer than that, it's better to skip that night rather than take it too close to bedtime. What if I don't see any improvement by day 7? Remember Margaret's timeline. Her real breakthrough came around day 10. Some people are faster responders, others need a bit more time. Your body has its own healing pace, and that's perfectly fine. Should I change anything else about my routine? For this first week, I recommend changing as little as possible besides adding the bedtime drink. Don't suddenly start drinking more water during the day. Don't change your evening meal timing. Don't add other supplements. Let your body adjust to this one change first. Here's something beautiful that many people don't expect. By day 5 or 6, the simple ritual of preparing and drinking your mixture often becomes something you look forward to. It's a signal to your mind and body that it's time to transition into rest mode. The act itself becomes calming. Some people tell me they use those 5 minutes of slow sipping as a mini meditation, a time to reflect on the day, set intentions for peaceful sleep, or simply enjoy a few minutes of quiet. By the end of week 1, I want you to come back to this video and leave me an update in the comments. Tell me your day 1 number of wake-ups versus your day 7 number. Share how your energy levels have changed. Let me know if you've noticed any other unexpected benefits. But more importantly, I want you to notice how it feels to be actively participating in your own healing instead of just managing symptoms. There's something profoundly empowering about taking control of your health with simple, natural approaches. Week 1 is just the beginning. Your body is learning, adjusting, and starting to remember what balanced sleep feels like. Trust the process, be patient with yourself, and remember that every small improvement is your body's way of saying thank you for finally giving it what it needs to heal.
What I'm about to share with you next is perhaps the most important part of this entire conversation, because better sleep is just the beginning of what's possible when you address the root causes of health challenges instead of just masking symptoms.
3 months after Margaret started her simple bedtime ritual, she called me with news that had nothing to do with her bladder. "Doctor, I just wanted to thank you again," she said, "but not for the reason you might think. Yes, I'm sleeping through the night, and that's wonderful. But yesterday, I hiked 3 miles with my granddaughter. 3 miles. I haven't had that kind of energy in years." That conversation reminded me why I love what I do. Because when you fix one fundamental problem, like disrupted sleep, everything else in your body starts working better too. When you're no longer waking up exhausted every morning, your immune system strengthens, your mood stabilizes, your mind becomes clearer and sharper. Your body has the energy it needs for repair and renewal instead of just survival. Margaret discovered what thousands of my patients have learned. Better sleep doesn't just mean better nights, it means a better life. Think about what you'll do with all that reclaimed energy. Maybe you'll finally feel confident enough to plan that trip you've been putting off. Maybe you'll have the stamina to keep up with grandchildren or reconnect with activities you used to love. Maybe you'll simply wake up each morning feeling like yourself again instead of dragging through your days in a fog of exhaustion. But here's what I find most remarkable about this transformation. It happens gradually, naturally, without forcing your body into submission with harsh medications or complicated protocols. Your body remembers how to heal when you give it the right tools. The ripple effects extend far beyond sleep. When inflammation decreases throughout your body, joint pain often improves. When your nervous system calms down, anxiety levels frequently drop. When your sleep cycles normalize, your appetite and digestion often regulate themselves. Many of my patients tell me they feel more like themselves than they have in years. Not because they've become someone new, but because they've removed the barriers that were preventing their natural vitality from shining through. This is what's possible when you address root causes instead of just managing symptoms. When you work with your body's innate wisdom instead of against it. When you choose healing over coping. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, this sounds too good to be true. I understand that skepticism. You've probably been disappointed before by promises that didn't deliver. But what I'm describing isn't magic. It's simply what happens when you give your body what it actually needs to function properly. The beautiful thing about natural healing is that it builds on itself. Each night of better sleep makes the next night easier. Each reduction in inflammation makes your entire system more resilient. Each step toward balance creates momentum for the next step. Your journey doesn't end with better sleep, it begins there. Next week, I'm going to share another simple morning ritual that builds on what you're learning tonight. It's about supporting your bladder health during the day while boosting your energy levels naturally. If tonight's solution helps you reclaim your nights, next week's video will help you reclaim your days. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on because these approaches work best when you understand how they connect with each other. Each piece builds on the last, creating a foundation of health that supports everything else you want to do in life. But right now, tonight, you have everything you need to begin this transformation. You have the knowledge, you have the recipe, and most importantly, you have hope. I want to leave you with something Margaret said to me during her last visit. She was telling me about her trip to California to see her grandchildren, and she paused mid-sentence. You know what the best part was? It wasn't just that I could make the flight without worrying about bathrooms, or that I slept well in an unfamiliar bed. It was waking up each morning excited about the day ahead instead of wondering how tired I'd be. That's what I want for you. Not just better sleep, but the return of excitement about your days. The confidence that comes from feeling like your body is working with you instead of against you. The peace of mind that comes from knowing you have tools that actually work.
Tonight, when you prepare your first glass of tart cherry juice and magnesium, know that you're not just making a drink. You're making a choice. A choice to invest in your healing instead of just managing your symptoms. A choice to believe that better is possible. Your journey back to restful nights and energetic days starts with one simple sip. And I'll be here, supporting you every step of the way. Sweet dreams, and here's to the sleep you've been missing and the life that's waiting for you on the other side of a truly restful night.